What?
Gentlemen, take a seat.
Thank you.
I'm your host. I have to seat last. Good afternoon, and no, this is not the graveyard shift. You got a couple of other very interesting presentations coming. And I don't know whether we have on stage already applauded FHS for doing what they have done. I said yesterday to somebody, I always struggle at these events between content and contacts. And I'm really happy that a lot of you are looking for content, which is great. So I think they deserve a round of applause to get the people on stage that they have done. And we're talking about something that has not been spoken about at all today or yesterday. We're talking about operating models. But we should start with yourselves. Just a couple of sentences to who you are so that everybody knows who you are. I mean, some of you are known more than others. Like the gentleman said earlier on, some countries are easier to get on with than others. But let's start with you, Mehdi.
Hi, my name is Mehdi Morad. I head hospitality and conservation for JCG Group, based out of Kenya. And I used to hold corporate roles with my friend Réda.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Thomson. I'm the Senior Vice President Development for TFG Hospitality, and based out of Dubai. But we've just, as some of you will know, just signed for 10 properties in Ethiopia, and we're very excited about coming into the African market. Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Réda Faceh. I'm Vice President Development for Northern, Western, and Central Africa for the Accor Group, and I'm based in our regional office in Casablanca, Morocco.
Great. So let's get straight into it. If I had to ask you, just you name one of the three options that we've got, which is lease, HMA, and let's assume HMA is brand managed, and franchise. Mehdi.
I think I'm the wrong person to start with. I say something in the middle. I'd say something between management and franchise. Manchise.
Manchise.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a good one. Dave?
Oh, no, well, yeah. Sorry, no, carry on.
No, over to you. Maybe we'll come to explanations after.
We will.
No, well, obviously, from my point of view, franchise with an HMA with an independent hotel operator or a third-party
TPO or independent.
whatever you want to
We
call
know
it.
what you mean.
Yeah, but yeah, that's obviously what I would say for sure.
Last year, our main development approach was HMA, and mainly 95% of our network within Africa was under management agreement. Today is completely changing because we are shifting our strategy to accelerate our development through franchise, because we think that's the appropriate time to develop franchise in Africa, because we are facing now many options with a good white label operator to accompany our development and to help some independent owner to operate their hotels with a franchise with one of our brands.
Amazing. 1 year, and I mean, it's been coming for a while.
It's not 1 year, it was coming from many years in some other regions. If you take the example of Europe, we do more franchise than management because it was a question of maturity of the market. And in Africa, we think that's the appropriate time. We have seen more and more franchise activities in more mature market, like in Northern Africa and in South Africa. But now it's coming to the whole continent because it's the perfect timing to do that. And now, without naming all the third-party operator, but you have many options on the field with some international company, but also some very good regional company with regional offices in Africa.
Yeah. The title said also includes some lease. Lease?
Not in the market, really. You don't get much, at least not in Southern Africa, potentially in Northern Africa, some, but it's not something we find here.
Yeah, lease is a very tough model as well for an operator to take on. I mean, you've seen what's recently happened, unfortunately, back in the Middle East, and if you've been in a lease situation, you would now be desperately trying to get yourself out of it, for sure. So I think, if you can go into a lease with lots of caveats and lots of escape clauses, then maybe, but otherwise, no, it's definitely not the way to go.
Yeah.
It's a very complicated model, lease for Africa, because if we study what happens in Europe, there is many hotels under lease with institutional actors. But they lease existing hotel on a very mature market when they have a lot of data and there is no risk on the revenue generated by the lease, which is not the case in our market. And I've seen many cases, for example, in Morocco, where some owners think that it's riskless to give their asset into a lease by taking 1 year of guarantee of lease. But at the end, there is only two options. The asset is performing well, and everybody is happy, except the owner, because the rewards is more on the leasee than the lessor. And the second option, if it doesn't work well, the leasee will break the contract because they will not pay the difference between the minimum lease guarantee and the real revenue generated by the assets. That's why I'm not sure that we are ready in Africa for this kind of business model, and that's why in Accor we don't do lease, and we are mostly focused on management agreement or franchise agreement.
I think it would be interesting to see whether that will change, because there are a couple of markets where leases are in existence, and one colleague out of South Africa said, we are leasing. And when we had a meeting a few weeks ago, and somebody said, yeah, but it doesn't work, and whatever, he said, well, that's just badly negotiated. So of course, it'll be interesting to see whether it will happen as the market continues to mature. Now, to stick with you, Réda, brands, groups used to be owner-operators. Then they went asset light, and now they do franchise and really push very hard, and you confirmed that.
Exactly.
Is it a cop-out? Is it a revolution? Is it a change of mind? Is it a kind of let's pass the buck to somebody else? What is it?
It's not a revolution, it's just an evolution of the market, an evolution of the needs. And if I take the example, 5 years ago, 90% of the leads that I have in Africa was mainly for HMA. Today, owners would like to control their asset, to have more freedom to operate their hotels themselves or through a white label operator. I think it's simply an evolution of the market. If we study what happens in the US, which is for me a good benchmark of what could happen in the future in our market, in the US, there is very few HMA. 90% of the market is franchise. And for me, the franchise model is the future, and also the future in Africa.
Now, not everything that comes out of the US is great. Sorry, that was political. You see that happening everywhere, and that's something which helps you also to get the growth that you need as the groups, don't you? To have more franchises at a lesser fee maybe, but the volume will bring up the returns at the end.
Definitely on the franchise model, you took less fees from the hotel, but also it's simple to sign a franchise agreement, which allows us also to speed up our growth, but it's also answering the demand of the market, because we are not making a revolution, we're just answering of what the market needs, and we have seen that it started mainly in North Africa, because we have many options with the white label operator or with some independent owners which own their hotels for the last 20 years, and they have all the knowledge and the expertise to operate their hotels. But now it's shifting also for sub-Saharan Africa, which is quite good.
Yeah. Now, the explosion of brands, or the confusion of brands, or the plethora of brands, or whatever, I think, haven't you just added one this morning? Accor, wasn't there another brand added this morning? No.
No,
last week or next week.
Maybe.
But I think Marriott, I heard Matter. Matter is coming up, is it, Marcus? Maybe, maybe not. So there is this explosion, and when franchises started, it used to be the lower tiers, for want of a better word, that were franchised. They're easier to manage, they're less involved, and what have you. How, if you stick with Accor for a moment, how high the rankings are you going up to do franchise? Will you retain some of your luxury brands?
Yeah, it's a good question. For the moment, we open franchise for all our brands except lifestyle and luxury. And luxury, some brands we are open if the partner has the full expertise to operate a luxury property. Why we don't do that? Why we do that? Because we think for lifestyle and luxury, we need a proper expertise. And if you can study the business model of a lifestyle hotel, in some lifestyle hotels, you do 50% of the total turnover on the F&B. When I was discussing with the Trigono family on Mama Shelter, they told me sometimes in lifestyle, it's a restaurant with some rooms, and not the opposite. And to be successful on F&B, definitely you need to have the proper skills to operate and to make the revolution on the F&B. And for that, for the moment, we prefer to keep the operation, to implement all our standards and to be successful.
So Ennismore is off limits at the moment.
It's 100%
for franchises.
Management agreement. But it could evolve maybe in the future, but for the moment it's the case.
Right. Now to you, Dave, who's the, what's the right word? The, what did I call it? The, there's a lovely word I use. Yeah, who owns or who looks after the standards? Is that you or is it the brand? The manager?
Oh, definitely the operator. I mean, the brands have their standards, of course, but I mean, it's up to the operator to make sure they deliver on those, 100%. So, you know, and even when you're talking about a soft brand, which obviously has softer brand standards, if you like, I mean, it's still up to us to operate. And it's not just about operating to the standards, it's actually over-delivering to the guests and to the owner, of course. So,
right.
So from our point of view, we're not going to last very long working with brands if we don't actually over-deliver for them in terms of what their expectations are, as well as the owner. So yes, very much the operator's responsibility.
Mehdi, you're smiling.
Sorry?
I'm always smiling.
No, Mehdi was smiling. He's always smiling out of principle. I know, but
it's a principle.
No, but I mean, with your company, you mentioned to me earlier today that you'll be looking at doing something similar models and whatever. So again, the standards, because as an old guy hotelier, it was like kind of, you know, these are the brand standards and they're holy and they come from the, by now, franchisor and the franchisee or the operator has to implement them or whatever. But we also learned in one or two conversations today, there's more flexibility with the independent operator and whatever you. How will you see that? I mean, what is the, and I want to somehow come back to the plethora of brands. How do you explain to an owner and ultimately a guest of what he can expect when you've got an operator who operates on behalf of the franchise 47 or 40, no, 43, let's say, 43 of the 47 brands? How does one get that into one's head that this is all like working according to plan?
Well, I think beyond, I mean, all the brands except the soft brands have very clear standards and expectations. But the application on the ground, especially when you come to Africa, and we heard brands going into lodges, for example. Now how, if you're taking a Fairmont brand, for example, how can you have now the Fairmont Gold applied into a lodge? You can't. You can't, and you have to adapt. And that's also where, when I mentioned franchise, it was not really about the contract, but it was rather about the approach. You're coming to a continent that is totally different. And operators are coming to tap into the resources of the continent, wildlife, conservation, community. And here it means a whole different thing than from North Africa or than Europe. And for it to be really genuine, you have to adapt your brand standards. You have to adapt your vision. I mean, your values remain and stay, but if you're trying to enforce them just as per the book, be it the brand as a management, be it a third party, or be it even an owner, you're going to fail. I mean, I don't want to mention any, but one day I read that one brand was, as part of the global ESG, wanted to offset the carbon credits made in Africa in Asia. Wow, that's a lot of good sense, huh? You have plenty of places to do it here. But it's all about that. When I'm saying franchise, it's also really about brands are welcome, but to also pass the know-how. You know, so that's why I say often, I believe franchise may be light or too light for the moment. Management may be too heavy. I think the best is the smartest way would be to do something specific to wherever. And where Kenya is not where Botswana is, not where Morocco is. It's also one size fits all cannot work in this continent.
Of course, that is something which applies to owners who want to be not only remotely involved, but directly involved and want to manage their own thing. Then the franchise thing works. Otherwise, the independent operator is probably the better ones. Now, we're consultants. So when we speak to owners and say, we are thinking of a franchise for you, Mr. Owner, that would be a good idea, and get an independent operator in, often the reaction is, hell no, I don't want to pay 2 fees. Now I'm paying 2 people to do the same job. And you're looking at me and say, where's this question? That's my question. How do you, I know the answer, but I'm not going to give it to you. What do you explain to these owners? And there might be 1 or 2 owners in the room who actually say, you know what, I struggle with this. 2 invoices or some more maybe, but how do you make that work?
Well, I think I should answer that one. So, look, ultimately, and Neil George this morning spoke to that in the meeting this morning. It's all about owners obviously want greater control, and that's something that we're working with a third-party operator they have for sure. And it's also, at the end of the day, you're talking to people who are on the ground locally, who have the knowledge in the region, and you work for the owner as a third-party operator. Now, I know the brands say they work for the owners as well, which is fair enough, but the brands also have brand interests at heart, and there's no 2 ways about that. And so I think we also, we come into this relationship. Well, our fees are very, very manageable. They're not exorbitant in any way, shape, or form. And we also are able to offer services which aren't then charged back, it's hidden fees, or fees may not be hidden, but fees that don't appear necessarily in the HMA. I'm trying to be nice because I've got someone from the call next week, and I would like to work with them at some point. But but the reality is, when it comes to sort of revenue, when it comes to all the distribution costs that we bring, and that we can actually bring as an operator, because we have all that in place. Though we don't charge those as additional fees, and that is a huge saving on the bottom line. And so, not only do we believe, that being on market and having experts in the market, which I'm sure everyone else does, but that we can drive, a top line which is excellent. We can save costs for sure. There's no question about that. There are no additional fees apart from the fees that we charge, and as we say, the operator has more control. So I think it's a real upside. And from the brand's point of view, obviously, there's a big cost saving for them as well, and shareholders love franchise, right? There's no question about that. So I think for an owner, it's a win-win on both sides, and for the brands and for third-party operators. I think it's the best model. It's the model that you see worldwide. It's predominant. It's the most obvious model. We're seeing now the GCC in the Middle East actually moving into this as well, as there are people who are capable of operating these hotels on behalf of owners and on behalf of the brands. And I think that's what's held it up in this region, that's what's held it up in the Middle East, and that's why you're seeing a massive change switch from the to pure brand HMA model to the franchise model.
I keep thinking about our forefathers, well, not forefathers, but the people, the generations of my generation and maybe one before, that told the world we are the Marriotts, the Hiltons, the Accors of this world, and we are the only ones who know how to manage hotels. How, maybe from a PR perspective, do brands very nicely and smoothly make that change to tell the rest of the world, no, we're just now the label and the distribution and the loyalty and all that, but the management is better left. Because we heard that before, and a third-party operator is closer to the owner and works more for the owner, where if I had, and I used to work for brands before, I would have said, how dare you? Of course we do as well. But reality shows that you're not far off. So, how do you manage to make that full transition, to almost like sort of come and fast forward 5 years and say, okay, fine, all these are just franchise companies now?
It's a question of evolution on the market. I think that maybe 10 years or 20 years ago, there is a very important gap in terms of expertise to operate hotel. And that's why we need to have an international operator managing the hotel. But I think that today, some white label operator have the full knowledge to operate the hotel on behalf of owner. And that's why we have shifted our strategy. I was talking before about the US market. It was the case 20 years ago. It's just coming to Africa. And for us, it's not a change, but just an evolution. And we are adapting our strategy to the needs of the market. Of course, I was listening to the commercial speech of the third-party operator. Of course, they're saying that they are saving cost. I will not debate on that because it's their arguments. And tomorrow we would like to work more closely with them. But today we have many options on the table. If the owner would like to have the international operator managing the hotel, we can do it. If the owner would like to have more control of the asset, more interaction with the white label, we are open to do that. That's why I think flexibility and agility is the key words of our strategy today.
Right. So it's a marriage of convenience, and a lot of those third-party operating companies have not just popped up somewhere. A lot of them are ex-brand people who know the brand standards, who have worked through those for decades and what have you, and are now doing their own thing, and that marriage of convenience is working. And as you say, it's already proven in other jurisdictions or in other markets.
If you take the example of the most important third operator in the market in Africa, they have in their own team some old colleagues from Marriott, from Hilton, from Kempinski, from Accor, and they have the knowledge and they have the standards and the expertise to operate this hotel. That's why we are very comfortable with that.
I think a lot of people are here or attend these conferences, certainly my experience, and they say, can you connect me to somebody with money? I'm looking for somebody who can help me with a capital raise. Now, the model being not new, but relatively new in this market, how does that work with the capital raise? Because in the old days, it was like, a few years ago, no, I've got an LOI with one of the international brands. My project is now flying better than it was without. How does that work with third-party operators? Who weighs heavier? Is it the brand? Is it the operator? Is it the actual combination? Is it the operator being endorsed by the brand or by the fact that they're saying, yes, we will give you a franchise? How does that work when you look at at getting the capital? Maybe Mehdi, sorry. Right.
I would today, even the banks, even raising funds today, the fact of having a brand is not enough anymore. Be it the brand itself, be it the third party that you're going to bring to help you. It's really about credibility and about how your project is solid, how is your knowledge, what's the market potential, and so on. And just to go back to just quickly, sorry, going back to the question just before, I believe also third party, or white brand operators we're going to have in the middle can only be chosen and taken today if and only if they have the expertise on the market. Because it's not about replacing a brand sitting in New York or wherever by somebody sitting in Dubai just because it's closer. No, it's really about, as you said, experts from the market that know that can really bring and add value. And then you're happy to pay what people can perceive as double, but it's rather a split of bills to me rather than really doubling up the fees. So I don't believe today that they would win over. It's really expertise that would support more into raising funds and mobilizing for a project.
It depends also of the banks and the financial institution. I have the case, for example, in Cameroon 2 weeks ago, and the owners come back to me and say, Réda, I would like to do franchise, but when I'm presenting franchise to the banks, and it was with the banks who has not a great knowledge of hospitality, it was very difficult to explain to the banks that it's a workable solution. The third-party operator has the great knowledge to operate. It has been agreed by Accor, and we have full confidence on this TPO. And that's the crucial question. But with the big institutions like IFC or Proparco, for example, there is no debate. I think that it could work, as Mehdi said, if it's a good project on a good location with a good brand and a good TPO. There is no reason to.
That would have been my next question, whether the financiers, the banks, and whatever know enough about the model, know enough about the capacity in the market beyond the brands, i.e. the TPOs, and do they understand it enough? And I think it's maybe our job to make sure that they do and that they get more educated in it. I think we've got 1 minute 55 seconds left. Is that correct?
We have a question.
I was going to say, I think
on your right.
Maybe open up for one. Don't be horrible.
Scott.
It's been done so well. Two questions. One, okay, one, yes. Mr. Antel, sir.
I'll bring you a mic. I'm not being horrible. I just
No,
want to
no,
do
no.
my job. Okay.
I won't take it personal.
I think another reason for the growth of third-party managers is the fact that these big brands are publicly listed companies, and their sole mandate is to grow, grow, grow. And when you grow that big, you don't even know where your hotels are, and you can't manage them properly. So it has to come back to people who are localized, who know the local community.
What do you call it? Net
And
unit growth.
I think
Yes,
there's a
Nick.
conflict of interest between a publicly listed company and being a manager of a hotel, frankly.
Sure, but yeah, I think it's obvious that it's shifting. But what he's still smiling. You always smile, I know.
He's a happy guy, living in Nairobi, Neko Lodge.
So this is certainly here to stay, and I think we can look forward to more and more third-party operators coming on, and almost like sort of making it more difficult now to choose the right partner and to see who does what and who operates which ones better. And maybe we'll see something where there are certain guys that are more prone to one particular brand, one particular group. That might happen, maybe
You know,
not.
in the past, the main questions when you are on an RFP, request for proposal for a project, the main question is, do you have the expertise to operate in this country? Do you have a network in this country or on the region close to these countries? Now, the question that the owners or the consultants are asking is, operated an hotel is not an issue because we have many options on the field. The main question is, do your distribution is powerful in this region? That's the first question, in how you can bring clients to your hotels. And this question has completely shifted between the question that we had in the past and the question that we have today. And the main question is, how do you bring clients
And
to
there
my
we
hotel?
also know for a fact, and it was mentioned earlier as well, that there's some hotels that don't necessarily even require a brand to go with that because they can still do it. They've got there are some iconic brands that will be full whether you put a label on it or not, because they've been in existence and now they're being managed by a third-party operator who does a better job.
Yeah.
No, I think it's absolutely right. I mean, it's and you know, to your point as well.
Feel
I
your
mean,
presence.
it's all about in-market expertise, and you know that's the only way that a third-party operator can genuinely put itself forward. It's taken us 5 years to get into this market of knocking on doors constantly and trying to learn this market, understand this market, and we're very grateful to Midrock for the faith in us and put us into Ethiopia. You know, but it's been a lot of work, and it's been a lot of, you know, as you say, you've got there's 54 different countries, 54 different cultures. I think it was 3,000 different languages you were saying earlier. You know, so this isn't a one size fits all for sure, and it is about making sure that you have the expertise on the ground.
You must have knocked really loudly because they opened and gave you 10 eventually, so amazing. Good luck to you guys. Thank you very much, Réda, Dave, and Mehdi, and thank you to you for listening.